Will bots change the way we think about work? This is transformative.
Making technology human. Transformative. The productivity revolution.
Hello, and welcome to Transformative, a coffee break podcast about transforming your workplace and making technology feel a little more human. And welcome back to the home office. I'm Sam Glover, and interviewing with me, as always, is Kai Main. This series is all about the productivity revolution. We're breaking down what is required to build a physical and the digital workspace for a modern workforce. But this week follows on from the conversation we had last time about burnout. Listen to this episode as we find out more on how automation can actually improve staff welfare. And this time, it's all about taking a bit more of a deep dive into the automation side of that question. It's at the heart of the productivity revolution. The automation is this wonderful tool that, when implemented correctly, can make huge revolutionary change. And a lot of fears that people have around it is that automation is here to replace us, when it's actually the opposite. Automation should be seen more of like an extension of ourselves. It's a bit tough to explain, I'll give you, but don't worry. I try and come up with a much better explanation later in the conversation. Obviously, joining us again around the table this time to discuss this is Rajesh Radhakrishnan from Automation Anywhere and Kim Baxter, our People Operations Manager here at boxxe. Stick around to the end for a really exciting insight about how automation's future affects the workspace from Raj. And as always, you can find out more about the productivity revolution over on the website. So just follow the link in the description, just boxxe.com/automation/office automation to find out more about how you can automate your workspace. But for now, let's just get right to it. Let's go join Kim and Raj. Off the back of the last episode where we were talking about how do we keep the workspace productive and burnout, we got talking a lot about automation and bots in particular. So this time round, we want to ask both Kim and Rajesh again about, will bots change the way we actually think about work in particular?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think this picks up pretty perfectly from the last episode, but in a workplace that's becoming potentially increasingly automated, or certainly it looks like that's the direction that a lot of businesses are going, what responsibilities are going to be more productive for people to undertake? You know, is the way that we view productivity going to change? We're going to be more outcome focused. We're going to, time at work will be spent differently. So what would that look like? For example, would all administrators become bot managers instead? And, what does that office look like? I guess kicking off, I'd just be really curious, Rajesh, again, some of the conversations that you've potentially been having with clients recently, is kind of productivity, or the way that people are viewing productivity, changing?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Many of our customers actually have bots as full-fledged users in their system. So just like you have human beings, you have bots. And bots, of course, don't take any leave. They don't, sleep at night. So they're working constantly and around the clock. But they even give them names. Right, they give them names like Iron Man and Superman and Wonder Woman, and they have all kinds of. I'm just giving you the Marvel comic ones, but they have all kinds of names out there. And these bots, people start to refer to them by their name. They sometimes have birthday parties for the bots, and they become part of the workforce almost to some extent, right? So I think this is what we should expect going forward. Is the example I give you is, one of our customers at a bank, they used to do their month-end close in a very manual way. And they then had a bot, and they called the bot Tracy, and Tracy used to do the month-end close, and everybody was very happy about it. At one point, they changed their process, and, they brought in this person, and they asked her, hey, look, the process has changed. What do you want to do? Do you want to go update the bot? Do you want to go update Tracy, or do you want to do it manually? And she just looked at us, really shocked, and said, there's no way I'm ever going to do this job manually ever again. I'm going to go spend the time, update Tracy, and make sure he does it. But I'm never going to do this job manually ever again. So I think that's kind of the picture we're starting to see now, where people are getting much more comfortable by saying this part of the job needs to be automated. We don't want to do it. It's just mind numbing in terms of trying to figure out, tying off all these, last few pennies, last few cents. It's just too painful to do all of that. We're going to have a bot do that, and then an integrated part of the workflows. So that's what I see the future of work becoming: much more integration, much more acceptance of these as part of teams as you go forward.
Fantastic.
Oh, fascinating. And when people are just, I remember when someone described me these kind of like personal digital assistants for the first time. The first vision I always got was the house elves in Hogwarts. And the idea of that, there's this wizarding, just like, I think it's like in the third book where Hermione realizes, hold on, there's been something working this the whole time. I thought this was magic, and there was just these little house elves behind it. And it's just, that's how I see bots from now on. These lovely little house elves that are helping out.
Yeah.
But so
that's actually a great description of what it should be like. And this is really where bots are going, is really these personal digital assistants. When I say that, people automatically think of Siri or Alexa. This is different. This is for your workspace.
Yeah.
And the future that I want you to envision is almost where you don't have to learn the complexity of the application landscape within your organization. You don't need to know what your HR system looks like. You don't need to know that there are 3 HR systems or benefit systems. You simply have a simple interface where you tell your digital assistant what you want to do. It goes and navigates the back end and does what's necessary for you. Maybe even routes an approval directly to Kim for her authorization and so on, right? So that's potentially where we want all of this to go.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, Kim, I'm quite curious then, if we have these kind of, I can't get the word house elves out of my head now, but if we have these house elves who are kind of taking care of these administrative tasks.
Let's just use house elves.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So if we have this 7-step process, potentially for someone who's onboarding, they're, say, new to boxxe, for example, they need their new laptop added, they need to have their ID badge sent out. Someone in the people team might spend an hour going through all those systems and updating all of that. And you might say they're productive. Maybe they don't take a break. Maybe they just have a coffee and they get their head down, they get straight in. But if a house elf is taking care of that process for you, is the work that you would do instead, would you say that's more productive, that more impactful? As a people manager, how does that sound to you? How does that make you think about work?
Yeah, I mean, entirely. I think that it would free somebody like myself up to I guess, to really engage that person in the business. And, besides the fact that it's very sophisticated, and at boxxe, we are a tech company, so we should really be, I guess that's the image that we portray. And actually, our onboarding system is becoming very kind of automated in that those back end tasks. So once we put somebody into our people system, it does kick out a ticket to tech. They will then get their equipment ready. So we already actually do that in a sense. And it means that my induction with that person is actually very, very human. So I call them the week before on the mobile phone, not through Teams, and have a chat with them. We talk about the weather, when their equipment's going to arrive. I probably wouldn't have the time if we had 6 new starters in a week to personally give them all a call the week before and explain to them when their equipment is going to arrive confidently, because I know it will arrive and that the setup is going to be straightforward and simple. And then I can actually spend the time talking to them, getting to know them, making sure that they feel like a part of the boxxe community. So I think it's those kind of tasks that are not making me, that they're not a productive use of my time or anybody else's time in the team. It's a no-brainer, really, because it gives us a chance to do what we truly here to do, which is to help people thrive in our workplace.
So what I'd say is that there's a shift in terms of of how you would want to think about it, not just from an efficiency perspective, but from a effectiveness perspective, right? So, the example I was giving you about, a bank, where if you go to a bank and, one way to measure it is, efficiency, which is to say, there are 10 people standing in line and I can go through those 10 people in 20 minutes. So that's one way to do it and say that's just efficiency. Now, if you have bots helping you do this work and you're able to engage these people and maybe you're able to, sell them a new product, a new credit card, a new home loan or something else like that, create a deeper relationship with that customer, make it a more sticky relationship, the effectiveness of what you did is a lot more. And I think that's what, our more mature customers are starting to measure a lot more, which is not just the pure productivity, which is, how many tasks can you do in a minute? It is, are you creating a deeper customer engagement? Are you able to increase the stickiness? Are you creating more revenue? Are you doing all these other things? And every team is going to look at it differently, right? From an HR perspective, are you deepening the employee engagement as opposed to just onboarding 20 people in 20 minutes, right? So that's the switch that I expect to see happen.
I guess just to Rajesh's point there, it's that time spent, I guess, making an impact and strengthening the connection that will have the kind of long-term benefits, if you like. So yeah, it was a good example with the bank, Rajesh.
Absolutely. And I guess on that note, what I'm quite curious about is we're talking about automation coming into offices at the moment or coming into the workplace, potentially solving some challenges, but it definitely looks like we're thinking about how things could be. But say we were to fast forward to 5 or 10 years ahead from now, if these technologies kind of had a widespread adoption, I guess I wonder, based on everyone's personal experience of working at the moment, and maybe some of what we talked about last week around digital intensity, the average meeting being 10 minutes longer, 3 billion more emails a month, 1 billion of them going to Rajesh. What would the future of the workplace look like? And, what do we want that to look like, I guess, for each of our areas, if we can offload a lot of these tasks to a digital workforce?
More efficient. I'd like to say. I think in 5 to 10 years' time, this will be more of a norm, if you like. But I guess from thinking from a human resources perspective, I wouldn't want the use of bots and really sophisticated technology to make people complacent. I think that you do have to. We need to always keep kind of the human side there and present. And I guess, yeah, does that make any sense? Like, not to become lazy, that we just depend on, because actually the use of thinking about how we could potentially introduce bots into boxxe from a people perspective would be if somebody, it's like we get a lot of questions around our policies and processes, questions that don't take a lot to answer, but they come in droves, if you like. So that would save us. It would save us a lot of time. But then, when I think of different people in the team, I guess that take care of some of the administration, that's the way that they kind of learn and develop as well, is being like really in the detail of our policies and processes. So I think it's trying to strike that balance between keeping the human side kind of where it needs to be, if that makes sense. It makes sense in my head, but now I'm saying it out loud. I hope it makes sense to you guys.
I think it does, Kim. I think that's exactly what it is. It is, keeping the tasks that, you are very good as a human to yourself and giving everything else to bots. So, the best example I can give you is everybody in the workforce is going to become like one of your executives or even like your CEO, where you have an administrative assistant And you can delegate a bunch of things to a variety of people, but you don't delegate everything. I mean, you keep some very important decisions to yourself. So, everybody, even the junior most person in the company, can delegate a bunch of things to bots, and the bots are off doing all those different things. But you are going to make some very critical things, some very critical decisions, some very critical interpersonal relationships, some very effective, steps forward in what you're doing. And the people who are going to thrive and succeed with that are the ones who learn how to delegate those pieces off, but that don't delegate the wrong things off. Right? As a CEO, if you delegate, the most important things off to your junior staff, but you don't take that on yourself, then you're making a mistake. So in some sense, all of us are getting empowered with that, and all of us have to start thinking more from that kind of perspective, which is you are like, now like a senior person who's got access to all these bots who can go do things for you, all the menial stuff. So rather than you filling your time with all these repetitive tasks, now you get to really do something that's impactful. So how do you use that and take advantage of that as you go forward? That's what I say.
Absolutely.
I'm loving all these visions. I know from a personal perspective, because being someone's like dyspraxic, I do tend to kind of have a one-track mind. I focus on one thing and I do it really well, and that means everything else just kind of drops off. And I would love in like 5-10 years time being able to have like the whole automated and the bot system programmed in so that if it knows I'm going to a meeting, it's kind of sitting there along with me in that meeting, and afterwards just goes, how did it go for you? This was mentioned. Do you want me to remind you to do that as a task? I noticed you talked a lot about HR. Do you want to talk to Sarah and make something along, just that idea of it being this, that, like I said, that just someone that's constantly with me, being able to kind of just make sure, as even while I'm doing what I do well, is focusing. It's there. It has my back.
Almost like a note taker.
What you. It's more than that. Break it into 3 components. It's pre-call, during call, and after call. So in your case, pre-meeting, during meeting, and after meeting. So imagine that a bot comes and says, you're going into a meeting with the CEO. Here's all the information you possibly need to have at your fingertips as you go into this meeting. Here you go.
Oh, that'd be so useful.
And then during the meeting, it takes all the notes, and the CEO says, but what are the latest statistics on that? And while you're scratching your head, it just goes and brings up the statistics and says, here you are. Here's the statistics on all this kind of information right during there. And at the end of it, it says, okay, here are the 15 things you agreed and you promised you would do. Good luck with that, Sam, because you're not going to get to it. But I'm kidding. But it actually captures all of that for you.
Keeps you grounded as well.
Yeah, exactly. So this is exactly what we do now for contact center agents, actually, which is before the call, as soon as the person calls in, who is the customer, 360-degree view. During the call, automating a whole bunch of things. And after the call, saying, here are the 10 things you need to complete. So imagine doing that for each of us, for every one of our interactions. Right?
Absolutely. And I think even if you think about what the impact of that would be on us, like personally. So for example, I'm in content marketing. A lot of what I do is kind of research. And I'm in the job because I'm just curious. I want to know everything about everything. But a lot of the job isn't just the researching and the writing. It's, so for example, uploading stuff, and you have to format things in a certain way and get images a certain size. And it just gets really, it's just quite administrative. But my fiance, who works from home with me on the odd day, she knows when I'm like doing the bit of the job I love, the kind of researching, writing side. Because like I have my music on and like maybe we're doing like a bit of a boogie or something in the house, and she'd be like, are you writing? I'd be like, yeah. But then she can also tell, when I'm doing the admin heavy side, because, obviously you're not doing something you love, and, the people around you can sense that. It's kind of not necessarily why you're in the job. It's just part of the job. So I think, if we look at it from that front and having the house elves take care of that stuff for you, I think the future of the workplace looks like a very happy place to me.
Yeah, definitely.
And that sounds like a fantastic thought to end this episode on. So once again, thank you very much to Rajesh and Kim for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
My
It's
pleasure.
been great.
So that's all for today, and thank you so much to Raj and Kim, and for you for joining us on the pod. Check out the podcast on boxxe.com where you can find out more from our chat with Kim and Raj. And next time, we're going to be asking, is the workspace a sustainability issue that not enough people are talking about? And want to learn more about the modern workforce? Go to boxxe.com/modernwork. Find out more or even book a consultation with one of our workforce specialists. And as always, I'll see you next time.